Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I am your humble host, Mr. David Null, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers. And I greet you this Monday evening, February the 11th, I think, 2019. Yeah, it's 2019. Can y'all believe that stuff? And I've been I want to greet every one of you with the love and the honor and the respect that you deserve. I thank every one of you who listens to my videos and who leaves a comment. I know I'm a little remiss in getting back to some of you all, but just I want you to know that it's flu season, cold season, it's wintertime, and stuff, and all of us are dealing with these new energies coming into the universe, and I gotta honestly say sometimes I feel like I'm getting my butt whooped, but that's for that's for another video. In that the last several days I've been on this meditative streak, if you will. And as the name of this particular video suggests, it's the journey of 10,000 steps, a shaman's journey. And you say, well, okay, Hawkeye, what are you talking about? Well, I'm surrounded by, I don't know, 20 different books here. Took me a little while. I still have things that, I wanted to go through. But anyway, I'm reading from about Zen Buddhism, Confucius and Plato, Tai Chi, Qigong, and other meditations. I have a book called Voices of the Winds, Native American Legends, um, Mystics and Zen Masters, um, Traveler's Guide to the Astral Plane, things of Confucius and of different entities. And anyway, so one of the things that I wanted to start off with is that, for each person who wants to start on their journey of being a shaman, the best thing to do is to read all religions. And people say, what the dickens? Well, if you're a Christian, you start out reading the Bible. Hey, Breaking Dawn, how are you? I hope your cold is better. I've said a few prayers to you, for you, to you, anyway, directed in your direction. Many people start out with Christianity, at least here in the Western world. And, those are our beliefs and so forth. But when you get right down to it, the Christian belief, in my humble opinion, leaves out a lot of stuff. For example, many Christians believe that, for example, that we are put on this earth to have dominion over the earth. You're welcome, Breaking Dawn. And to be dominion over something, these people think they can rule and dig up the planet and do whatever they want to. And somehow that just doesn't sit right with most shamans that I have read, studied, or whatever. I've not heard of a shaman who's like, yeah, let's go ahead and dig an open pit mine, a half a mile deep, and let's dig up Mother Earth, and let's do, no, it's just not written in there, because it's not part of the core value of that person. So the journey of 10,000 steps begins with one step. And that first step belongs to whoever it is that's on the journey. Now, far be it for me to be the one to say, well, that's your first step. No, as soon as you become aware that there is something spiritual in your life, when you feel that there are angels, or when or you feel that there are demons, I mean, it goes both ways, or you understand about ghosts or other dimensions, or you believe in fairies and little, and the fae creatures and so forth. It's like, well, wait a minute now. Well, if you've read or watched any of my previous videos, one of the main things that a shaman must understand is that all things are possible. And that's like one big giant step. But what about the 10,000 steps? Well, I kept wondering what, and I was looking for the reference, but I remember years ago reading something that any journey, any journey, whether it's the journey to become a doctor or a lawyer, the journey entails you to go to school, to go to college, to get decent grades, to cheat on an exam or two. No, I'm kidding, but some people find that that's the only way that they can make whatever it is that they have to make. So it's their journey of being a lawyer or a doctor, or maybe it's the journey of being a really good garbage man. I mean, I've met people who are like, I'm riding on the back of the truck. It's open air. I'm off by, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And, it's I gotta smell garbage. Big deal. You get used to it. I mean, it's like, but I make decent money. Nobody argues. I get to plunder through people's garbage, and it's like, well, okay. So, but, so everybody's got their own journey. And whatever step you take, however that first step is first in realizing you want something else out of life. It's like, well, what is it? Well, do I feel that God spark? Do I feel Christ in my heart? Do I feel, like Buddha or Confucius or whatever? Do I feel the creator in my soul? Do I even feel like I have a soul? So these are all steps of the 10,000. Now, I was reminded years ago and by a shaman friend of mine, and he said, no medicine man or woman or shaman is worth their salt without first taking a 10,000 step journey. And I was like, what are you talking about? Well, I kind of understood, it's like a journey of 10,000. What's 10,000 steps? It's just a number. But it signifies that, to get to the top of a mountain and down, it's very possible you will take 10,000 steps, depending on how tall the mountain is and how far you got to wiggle around and all this other kind of stuff. So at that time, and this was back in the 90s, back in the 90s, I went to North Georgia to a mountain there called Trey Mountain. And was having my own spiritual journey. And so Spirit asked me to do my 10,000 steps, if you will, to the top of the mountain. And it's one of the highest mountains in North Georgia. I can't give you the thing, but it's around 4,000 or 5,000 feet. It's a good size hill. It's a really big size hill. And for me at that particular time, I was sitting behind a desk. I was 30 pounds overweight. I mean, and I had climbed that mountain before, but this time it was like, man, I was struggling. And Creator was telling me, but you must reach the top. And about halfway up, I thought I was going to have a freaking heart attack. I was wheezing, breathing. I was like, there is no way I'm headed up this hill. Well, then a hawk came in. Now, hawk has been a major critter in my life for a long time, thus the name Hawkeye Two Feathers. But when Hawk came into the picture, and it was like, oh my God, there's Hawk. And I mean, like right up above me. I mean, like it's sitting in the tree over my head, right above me. I don't mean like, sitting in a tree. And I was like, holy crap. And he looked at me. It was like, you've got to do this. You've got to make this journey. This is like the Himalayas, in my opinion, in my world. I've climbed taller mountains, but that wasn't the point. At that particular moment, that was the mountain I needed to climb. Man, I thought I was never going to get up that hill. And finally, as I got close to the top, there aren't many trees up there, little bushes and things. And there's a brass plate at the top that has a U.S. Geological Survey thingy up there at the top of the mountain. So I was sitting on that in between a couple of rocks, resting and watching. And the bird show that I got and the things that happened to me while I was on that mountain was unbelievable. I had, little chipmunks come out literally to my sneakers and played around my feet. And I was like, oh my God, what is, and then there were birds that were doing this swoopy thing that is very difficult to understand. but they were like starlings and they were playing. And I mean, they were literally swooping down and almost grazing my head. And I kept ducking it. And I was like, I'm going to hold still and see if one of them runs into me. And they would, I mean, I'm watching these birds come in at me, flying pell mell, just, I mean, hauling rear end, just come at me and then dive and go up. And I was like, oh my goodness. And then the clouds started forming. And then there were two hawks, a male and a female. And they were doing this thing and, in the sky. And then the female flew off. Well, at that particular time, I was having a breakup with a partner of many years. And Spirit told me, look, the rest of this journey is without her. You've got to make, this is your journey. And so I was like, oh my God. So through all these clouds and everything, it made a big circle in the sky. It was unbelievable. And then the female hawk flew through the opening in the clouds, big one, that kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And she went through this like an eye of the storm. And then the male hawk came down and flew like right over my head and gave this loud screech. And about that time, there was a clap of thunder and it started raining. And I mean, the storm broke. And I'm sitting on one of the highest hills in North Georgia, and it's lightning all around. And I'm the tallest thing on the mountain at the time. So needless to say, I gathered up my belongings and started to walk back down. I wasn't ready to walk back down, but Spirit was like, you're going to either get hit by lightning or you're going to head down this trail. So down the trail I went. And near where there are a lot of switchbacks, you go down a ways and then you turn and then you come back and then you turn. So you zigzag down the mountain or up the mountain, depending on which way you're headed. So, I mean, it was pouring rain. Well, I didn't get too far and I was back into the tree line. And the trees were slowing down the rain, but I was still soaking wet. Now, I had a book on me. I think it was Medicinal Plants. I think I've got it here with me in my little pile. But I realized that, I had to stop for a break because I was like, it was tough getting up the hill. Now it's thundering, it's full blown storm. And I get down to this one switchback and turn and look. And the same male hawk that had been there this whole afternoon, if you will, was sitting on a limb. Now the tree was a lot taller, but where the switchback was, the base of the tree was, 50, 75 feet below me down the slope, but this big limb, and there sat that hawk looking at me. And he looked dead in my soul and he was like, did you get the message, Hawkeye? And I was like, what? And I mean, looked dead in my eye and was like, and that's when I knew for absolute positive that Hawk was my one of my spirit guides, one of my animal totems, if you will. And so I got down to the base of the mountain, I don't know, 15 minutes later, and most of me was soaking wet. When I broke out of the trail and onto where the little parking lot area was, it stopped raining. I mean, it literally, I broke out from underneath the trees and it quit raining and the sun came back out. And I was like, you're kidding me. I don't mean a couple of minutes. I mean, I stepped out from under the trees and it stopped raining. And the hawk gave me a cry, and I could see between where the parking lot was and where the road was between the mountains. I could see up there, and it kind of circled and then flew off over the mountain. Well, now there are a lot of things I could try to explain about that, but spiritually, it was one of my journeys of 10,000 steps. Because had I not gone up the mountain, the questions that I was asking Creator to answer for me, the animals and things that spoke to me, the chipmunks, the other birds, the relationship with the hawk several times on that mountain. And I mean, hawks just don't usually stop in the middle of a rainstorm and look at you and then say, blessings to you, I'm your brother, and then fly off. I mean, okay. So, but each one of us who has decided that we wish to go on this journey, you will take 10,000 steps, whether you actually, count the numbers in your head or not. For every step that you take on your spiritual journey is one more lesson that you will learn. Each and every individual day is a different day. How much can you learn from this day? Can do you care to learn anything today? Or is it just a day that maybe like the last couple of days, my energy level was low, but my spirit was high? And I wanted to do this video, and it was like, no, you got to, no, you're not ready for this yet. Just hang on. Well, we'll get to it. And so here we are with this. So now what I've done with my lifetime is I've done, uh, as I look through these books, I guess I've done some extensive reading. I didn't realize I had all these books. And at one time or another, I've read through them. I pull them out on the shelf and, flip through it much like I would my Bible, looking for things to inspire me or to bring something to my brain. And so a couple of things showed up when I was prepping for this video. And I would like to share a couple of them with you, if you don't mind. And this one is An Introduction to Zen Buddhism by D.T. Suzuki. And oh my God, it's got a foreword by Carl Jung. So I didn't realize that. But anyway, this book was published by Grove Press in New York. Get this, in 1964. Okay, so here's the book. And anyway, so there's a lot of stuff in here about Buddhism and this and that and blah, blah, blah. To claim that you're a Buddhist is like saying you're a Christian. And I say that with respect, but as in Christianity, there are Baptists, there are, the Jehovah's Witness, there the, Catholics, there's the, Lutherans and the Methodists and the Presbyterians but they're all Christian. But none of those other religions will give too much credence to the other one. Well, now Buddhism is a lot like that. In that in one area, say of Japan or in China, the philosophies of Buddha are still the basic same. But how it's if there are ceremonies or bells or incense or however they do it, it has been a societal type of thing. Society has deemed how they are a Buddhist, not necessarily from the teachings themselves or the interpretations thereof. But some of these folks who talk about Zen Buddhism, it's usually divided into the Hinayana and the Mahayana. The Mahayana Buddhism traces its final authority to its Indian founder, the Great Buddha. When this developed form, it was introduced into China and then into Japan. It achieved further development in these countries. This achievement was no doubt due to the Chinese and Japanese Buddhist leaders who knew how to apply the principles of their faith to the ever-varying conditions of life. Ever-varying conditions of life. We're in that all the time. And to the religious needs of the people. Now, this particular book was written in 1964. So some of these books that I have, they survived a fire of mine. And, I'm just so lucky to still have them. Anyway, in ordinary life, Zen is the spirit of a man. Zen, Zen. Zen believed in his inner purity and goodness. Whatever is super added or violently torn away injures the wholesomeness of the spirit. Zen, therefore, is emphatically against all religious conventionalisms. It is irreligious, however, is merely apparent. Those who are truly religious will be surprised to find that after all, there is so much of religion in the barbarous declaration of Zen. But to say that Zen is a religion in the sense that Christianity or Mohammedanism is would be a mistake. So people who think that Zen is a religious type of thing, you're off the mark. To make my point clear, I quote the following. When Sakyamuni was born, it is said that he lifted one hand toward the heavens and pointed to the earth with the other, claiming, above the heavens and below the heavens, I alone am the honored one. Now, he was the founder of the Uman school of Zen. Um, Zen is not to be confounded with the form of meditation as practiced by the New Thought folks, or Christian Scientist, or Hindu, or some Buddhist. Um, a man may meditate on a religious or philosophical subject while disciplining himself in Zen, but that is only incidental. The essence of Zen, I lost my place. The essence of, I missed it. Oh, there we go. The essence of Zen is not there at all. Zen proposes to discipline the mind itself, to make it its own master through an insight into its proper nature. Zen, therefore, is more than meditation in its ordinary sense. The discipline of Zen consists in opening the mental eye in order to look into the very reason of existence. Zen. So you can be a Christian and be practicing Zen. You could be, Muhammad and be actually um, be practicing Zen. Now you say, well, Hawkeye, what do you mean by that? Well, Zen is a feeling. Zen is that meditation inside that you're like, whoa, dude, that's it. It's I don't know. It's that spiritualness where you say, oh my goodness, um, I can't believe it's not better. When you realize that there's a certain, maybe it's the first time you've meditated with a tree and you have felt the energy of the tree. I mean, you sincerely feel it. You have melded with the energy of the tree and you experience what it feels like to be a leaf floating in the wind. Boy, is that Zen, you know? But what it boils back down to is what is our essence? Who is you and me? What are you made of? Well, you've heard me speak about the fact that, what about our soul? What about our spiritualness? And I believe every one of us has a soul. Some people's are, much darker and, got some crap in it that they really need to get rid of. But in Zen, you accept what you've done because you can't change it. But with Zen, you understand that my essence, if I have done nasty things in this life or a previous life, depending, that first off, I have to find forgiveness within myself for those nasty deeds or however my reactions or actions or, my words mostly. But with the point though, that, and to try to make retribution as much as you can in that, go back to the people that you injured so that you can make, it's not so much that you try to make amends for it, is that you try to balance out the negativity. When you yourself can say, man, I effed up. I messed up big time. Man, there's no way. Well, then be a person and stand up and then admit it to yourself. I did wrong. And then try your best to get back to the people that you wronged, however it may have been, and say so. That helps to clean the slate. It might not be perfectly polished, but it's better than carrying that stuff, You can't carry it with you. That's the point. You got to get rid of it. Now, some people will talk about how they, how they, went into some type of meditation and they did it. That's all really good. But here's the thing. Are you looking at it? Well, namaste. I hear some people say that. And I know that they've got good intention. But sometimes some of their actions are like, how are you practicing namaste? Have a good day, blah, blah, blah. But you're doing these things that are just absolutely totally on the opposite side of where you should be. Oh, but you say namaste, let's all have a good day. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's almost like saying amen, brother. Amen. Amen, brothers and sisters. Yeah, okay. It somehow loses some of its oomph, if you will, because of some of the people who use the word all the time. Well, namaste, namaste. And it's, they overuse it, in my opinion. Do you have to keep using the dang word? I mean, okay, we get it. All right. Now, I'm not picking on anybody, but you probably listened or heard to somebody that's like, would you cut it out with the namaste business? Just tone it down a little. We got it. Okay. And it almost seems like there are some folks who are trying to make up for the fact that, where if I say these words, then people are going to know that I'm on this spiritual journey. Okay, that's great. And I mean that. But it's like, but everything's all wrapped up in that word. Well, because I use the word namaste, I'm now a Zen Buddhist. Or I'm now practicing in Zen. And hold on to your shirt tails there, little critter. I think you missed the chicken dinner. Just gonna get the scraps. The journey of 10,000 steps is the journey into all of these thought processes. If you ignore one, then you ignore them all. Because how can you understand the universe if you're only going to listen to one opinion? Well, I'm a Christian and that's the only thing there is to it. Really? Seriously. I mean, I'm not saying you need to convert to another religion. That's not my point. But have you read about Buddhism? Have you read about, these other forms? People have been, practicing these things for thousands of years before Christ. And you have to wonder, I have, now, you probably already know my position on Jesus Christ. I do believe that a personage of that, the Christ figure, did exist multiple times in fact, the Christ consciousness could have been a Buddha. What? Oh, I know that's going to drive some people crazy. But we have to think of it in terms, because we have to think of in terms of what was Christ trying to teach us? A higher form of spirituality. Now, here's for an example. The thing about the mustard seeds. Well, if you take mustard seeds and put them in, on good ground, they'll grow up, and if you use poor soil, and then there are some that falls between the rocks. Well, just between you and me, mustard seeds are dadgum. They'll grow in cracks sometimes better than in a field. That's just my own personal observation over the years. But Christ was trying to use the parable and say, well, if you've got good soil, you're going to get nourishment. It's going to grow, and your thought process and all of these good things. But did he mean that we were mustard seeds in the literal sense? Well, no. And we have to take some of the things that Buddha and some of these other folks discussed with a little grain of salt as well. Oh my God, the Chinese said blah, 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 blah. Okay. Speaking of that, let's go hit a couple of little, Confucius says. Now, I've got this book here, and it's got Confucius and Plato. And this was part of the Decatur DeKalb Library in Newton County. And I was looking for a date. Oh my gosh. Wow. This book is from 1937. I knew it was old. I mean, Anyway, Confucius, the Analects, Section 1. Now, Confucius was born in China in 1551 BC and a native of the state of Lu, which is part of the modern province um, Shantung, which had long been part of an older civilization. Uh, at 19, he married a lady from the state of Sung and subsequently had a son and two daughters. At 21, he established a school for the young men who had become attracted to his teachings and continued his study with minor interruptions until 501 BC. In that year, he was appointed governor of a district and rose to become prime minister. In 496 BC, his influence and Confucian went into exile, wandering from state to state for 13 years. He was recalled in 484 BC, but no longer sought office. He died in 479 BC. His clan name was, I can't pronounce this anyway, but so there's a little bit of history on Confucius. Now here's one of the first ones. The master said, "It is not indeed a pleasure." Wait, excuse me, let me start that over. Is it not indeed a pleasure to acquire knowledge and constantly to exercise oneself therein? And is it not delightful to have men of kindred spirit to come from afar? But is not he a true philosopher who, though he be unrecognized of men, cherishes no resentment? So, in other words, a wise man, and some of you and some folks have said, well, Hawkeye, you're a fairly, wise person in these things. At 66 years and counting, I continue to study and share these things that I have learned over the years. And the thing is that, as a hermit and as a shaman, it is not my position to like stand on a soapbox in the middle of Walmart and go, okay, everybody come join me. I want you to hear my message. Not there. So, and I'm using myself as a poor example, but the idea is, as I've often said, I never ask anyone to like or share my video. You do it of your own accord, not because I asked you to. It's because it's the message that I'm bringing to you that is very old. It's thousands of years old. And so none of this is like anything really new. As some of the ET folk have said, everything old will become new again. Well, let's go back to some of this old philosophy. What's wrong with it? Nothing. Actually, when you believe that trees and rocks and birds and things, and we all share a common zen, if you will, a common essence, a common core, when you understand these things, then you are on the road to being a shaman in whatever religion or whatever society or culture that you've grown up in. So there are some of these things they're really good liners in that the higher type of man is not a machine. Now, I've worked in manufacturing, and one of the reasons why I did so good in manufacturing was because they learned how to become a machine. I learned how to make my all of my motions count. And I would go into a machine mode up here in my head so that I would 1, 2, 3 stamp, 1, 2, 3 stamp, 1, 2, 3 stamp. And in that, I would go into a Zen type of thing in manufacturing and drilling holes or whatever it was, machining things, or maybe it was assembling something. But the higher type of a man is not a machine. So, in other words, I can train myself to do certain, pick up pieces or lick envelopes or whatever it may be. But just because I've learned how to do mechanical things doesn't necessarily mean that I'm a better person. Okay. The master said, learning without thinking is useless. Learning without thinking is useless. Thinking without learning is dangerous. I really like that one. Now, this is in book 2 of Confucius, and it's called the Analects. And so this was number 9. Wait a minute, no, 15, sorry. It's in Roman numerals. The next one is XVIL, which should be 16. Yeah. To devote oneself to irregular speculations is decidedly harmful. To devote oneself to irregular speculations is decidedly harmful. Now, what does that mean? Well, here's one I've talked about. It's Planet X again. So devote oneself to irregular speculation. The irregular speculation is we're all going to die tomorrow again, and they keep pumping this stuff out. We're all going to die in another 3 years. No, we're going to die in another 10 years. Well, some of us might die tomorrow. That's not the point. But the thing is that people are going into this irregular speculation, and it is decidedly harmful because people are living in fear all the time. Oh, Planet X is for real, really real again. And here we go, round 29 or something with, Planet X and the thing. Is decidedly harmful. Now, this is 2,000 years ago. Actually more, but, almost 2,100. But anyway, so shall I teach you the meaning of knowledge? When you know a thing, to recognize that you know it. And when you do not, to know that you do not know. That is knowledge. Let me try that again. Shall I teach you the meaning of knowledge? When you know a thing, to recognize that you know it. In other words, I just feel it in my heart, regardless of who says what, that a Christ existed. Now, was it all true from all the way all the Gospels are written and all that? I'm not necessarily buying all that. That's not my point. In my core belief, I believe there was a Christ type person. Okay. Now, so that's knowledge. And when I understand it, that is the knowledge I retain. When you know a thing, to recognize that you know it. In other words, 2 plus 2 is 4. I'm sorry, new math, 2 plus 2 is still 4. If I got 2 apples and 2 apples, there are 4 apples. When I know it, it's there. That's the knowledge I have. And when I don't know what something is, to know that I don't know is knowledge. If I say, well, you know what? This new math says 2 plus 2 is 7. I don't know about it. I'm going to be honest with you and say I think it's blah, blah. But in my world, 2 plus 2 is 4. In this other reality, 2 plus 2 equals 7. Not sure how you got that answer, but because I don't know how you got to your conclusion, I'm going to just say, I don't know. Now, does that make me stupid, or does that make me a wise person? A wise person says, I don't know about that. I know a little bit about it. Well, I'd changed spark plugs in an old Buick one time. Does that make me a mechanic? Not necessarily. I put water in the radiator once when it overheated. Does that make you a mechanic? No. But does that mean that you know a lot about cars? No. Could you rebuild an engine? No. But to the point though, but you understand enough of it. Well, that's an engine. So, and you know that part. But when you have knowledge and wisdom, you can say, well, I know that's an engine. I know those are spark plug wires, and I know that's a radiator in the radiator cap. But the rest of it, I'm going to be smart enough and say, I don't know. Now, does that prove that somebody's stupid? or that they're wise enough to be able to say, I know that, that, and that, but that's all. That's being honest. That's being sincere. That's being in tune with your core spirit. Because why would you lie? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's the carburetor. Well, this has got fuel injection in it. See, EFI. What does that mean? Electronic fuel injection. EFI. What? What? This thing don't have a carburetor? No, it ain't got a carburetor. What? Okay. But to subway, it's got to be the carburetor. Well, what if it don't have a carburetor? So there you've met people like that. So my point to that is that, as Confucius said to 2K years ago, the knowledge that you have and you're sure about it, you got it. Here's a cute one. The master said, "He who governs by his moral excellence may be compared to the pole star, which abides in its place with all the stars bow towards it." He who governs his moral excellence. In other words, that what's right is right. And, if somebody's getting beat up, you go, hey, you try to step. Hurting a child. That your moral compass may be compared to the pole star, meaning that it's always there and it's always in the same position. Now, he talked about the pole star 2,000 years ago, just saying, which abides in its place. In other words, it stays pretty much there. Well, all the stars rotate around it. Now, it's from our point of view. When you ask the meaning of piety, the master said, the piety of the present day merely means to feed one's parents, but even one's dogs and horses receive their food without reverence. Wherein lies the difference? So some people will say, well, piety. Well, you've heard of some people say, well, some people care for their dogs more than they care for a human being. And I've seen it, and you've probably seen it too. But so our piety, what makes us holy? What makes us, our spiritual selves, the piousness of who we are. I come to you with a humble heart always, because it's like, I don't think I'm any better than the next guy, really. I understand a lot of stuff. Now, I may look at somebody else and go, I'm not quite sure if that's necessarily what they meant by that, but if that's your interpretation, okie dokie, I can't condemn anybody. Well, I can point my finger and go, that man just murdered someone, or that man was a pedophile, or or something like that, or he beat his wife, or and we can accuse them of bad behavior, but there's no way that I could put judgment upon those people, because it's not my place to judge. So in our piousness, we have to understand that there is more to what we believe in, and it's part of our 10,000 steps. Now, I've read books about people who've gone to Australia and hung out with the Aborigines and went on a walkabout. And the things that they were taught was that in a lot of different ways, nature takes care of everything if you allow it to. And that's not to say that nature won't be a pain in the butt and strike your little behindy with a big bolt of lightning from somewhere. That's not the point. But the thing is even if you got hit by lightning, you would be ready to go to the spirit. That your inner being, that your piousness, your righteousness, your spiritualness, your soul is part of these 10,000 steps. So if you wish to find your soul, you're going to have to travel inside as well as spiritually outside. And any good shaman will literally take 10,000 steps with their feet on some type of a walkabout. Because with every step, you see a new plant, you see an ant, you see a frog, you see a rock. Every step there's something else there if you're willing to look. And even in the desert, which I'm not too fond of the desert, just saying, but when I was in the desert for the short time I was there, I can understand that there's beauty in the place. But at the same time, it's much like Florida and me, and like it's that, anyway, too much sand in my nose, it gets in my underwear, rah, 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 rah. But one could say the same thing with, here in South Georgia with the swamp in the backyard. Well, how do you make it with mosquitoes? Well, you wear long sleeve shirts, you cover yourself with, the local bugs, berries, and things, and you wear a net around your hair so that the mosquitoes don't come in and chew your face and carry it off somewhere, and deposit it in the pond and make more babies. Anyway, but with that said, so the 10,000 steps, I was looking for another. The master said one day, "Am I indeed a man with innate knowledge? I have no such knowledge, but when an uncultivated person, in all simplicity, comes to me with a question, I thrash out its pros and cons until I can fathom it." So, in other words, a mathematician might be smart and all these little squiggly squigs and pi and trig and, blah, blah, blah. And there are those of us who like look at it and go, well, that's cool. That I can understand sort of where you're going with this, but I don't get it. But that same mathematician might not be able, to put together a tricycle or change the spark plugs in an automobile. I mean, they may, I've known people like this, very, very smart intellectually, but can't drive a nail in a board. But does that make them, functionally stupid? No, they just know things in their own way. So, but with this, is our knowledge innate to us? Are we born a mathematician? Are we born a carpenter or a musician? Or I don't know if anybody's ever been born a lawyer, but you know what I mean. Um, but anyway, so how we start off with our 10,000 steps depends on where we came from. And I don't necessarily, well, I come from India. No, but I mean, what kind of home life did you have? Did you have a spiritual home life, or, did you get whooped all the time? And, I got whooped for the dumbest things. It wasn't that we got whooped all the time, but we got whooped for the dumbest things. And in my opinion, that was too much. But anyway, for some reason, I would tell the truth and they would think I was lying. And then I started lying and it sounded better. And they were like, well, okay. It was like, I tried to tell you the damn truth. And then later on, they said, well, you lied to me. And I said, no, I told you the truth first. And then when you said, okay, now tell me the truth, that's when I lied. The first time I told you the darn truth. You just didn't hear me. So, but with that anyway. So, but with Confucius 2,000 years ago, for example, I grew up near the Hillsborough River. We were all the time going towards water, and I find out later on that I'm a water dragon, which makes a lot of sense in that respect. One day, when the master was standing by a stream, he observed, all is transient, like this, unceasingly, day and night. So in many of the Native American traditions and so forth, a lot of other, the river of life is always flowing. It's always, going downhill kind of thing, which is a little weird. in that, we seek for a higher sense of um, spiritual achievement, but yet if we follow the path of the river, we are constantly going downhill. A little bit of an oxymoron. Well, but those of us who have, grew up near the beach always wanted to go upstream. Where did the water come from? What did the water pass but by the time it get down here to the bay? And so, for years and years, and I kept going further up the river in the Hillsborough River. Now I'm on the Little Ochlockonee River, and I'm pretty far north. I'm about halfway between, um, you know, uh, where it really starts and where it empties out into the Big Ochlockonee River. But right now the water's up and the water's flowing, which is really good because if you've listened to me for any length of time, you've heard me complain about my backyard isn't flooded as it should be. It's not a swamp. It is now, much like a swamp. Lots of crickets, lots of frogs. Oh my God, the cacophony of frogs the other night was absolutely great. But anyway, but sitting and listening to the different types of frogs, you say, well, what's that got to do with any of this, Hawkeye? What's the 10,000 steps mean? Well, I could read Zen, and I could read Confucius, and I can read about Tai Chi, and I can read about Jesus. But the thing is this is part of every one of their journeys. So Confucius, they were asking him, Master, what does this mean? Well, all life is like a river. There's lots of books and lots of different things that, um, that discuss, the importance and vitality of the river, its cleanliness, and the fact that it's always flowing and bubbling and creating oxygen. And there's life. Well, some streams are lifeless anymore, but to the point back in the day, all the streams had life, all this, and so that it proved that you could go to the water to be cleansed. And I think that's where the baptism thing came in because, anytime I've ever had a harrowing experience or whatever, back in the day when I was, swimming all the time and going to the river and whatever, there was nothing like, I don't give a crap how bad the day was. You dove in the river and you just let that water kind of, you flow with it, float on the water a little ways, swim up against it, feel the current, around your body, and you get out and you're a new person. Don't know what it is. Yeah, the worry's still there, but there's something about that stream. Now, there are people where, you take a good shower. Well, if you live in the city, the water coming out is probably nasty as crap with the chlorine and stuff. But to the point, though, that if there are things you could do to, help the water that comes out of your tap to be more, environmentally friendly to your hair and whatever. Anyway, but to the point, though, you can still use it for cleansing. But there's nothing like a good spring-fed stream to go get your jollies off. Just put your feet in the thing and let the water rush across it. And it's just invigorating. I mean, I've been out hiking before for days in the mountains, and you come across a little stream and you take your boots off and you sit down for 10 minutes and put your feet in the stream. And oh my gosh, it's just like, my feet will still hurt some, but it's like, oh, it took all the worry out, and it just, oh my gosh, it feels so good. So, but if you never journey to a stream, if you never take your shoes off and put your feet in a nice cold bubbling stream, how you going to know what that feels like? You got to take the journey. And you say, well, I'll go outside and turn on the hose. Really? Seriously? I mean, there are people who try to get around what nature is trying to pull us to. So the journey of 10,000 steps, it starts with the heart. It starts with the mind. It starts with our thought process. But as I stated at the beginning of this video, I climbed Trey Mountain. I took my 10,000 steps up there and back. I'm sure it's a 5,000 foot mountain. So you're going to take a couple of steps. So it could easily have been 10,000 steps. But anyway, I digress. The point of the matter, it's the journey. If you're unwilling to take a physical 10,000 step journey, go somewhere, walk a beach, go somewhere where there's nature. because in order for you to feel entirely what the creator, what the universe is trying to tell you, you gotta take a 10,000 step journey. And you say, well, how far is that? Well, and it's not like you got to leave your family and friends for a month and go into the jungle. That's not what I'm talking about. My little excursion was an afternoon in the North Georgia mountains. An afternoon, couple hours. Well, that was driving up there, but the absolute experience of it was maybe 3 hours. Climbed up, started raining, I came back down. So maybe 4 hours total. So it's like you can't find 4 hours at some point in order for you to start your shaman journey. You must walk with Mother Earth. You must you got to take one step. And as you take one step and the second one and the next step and the next step, that takes you on your journey. Read all that you can about all different shamans. Don't stick with one and go. I had a friend of mine who was just like, he was stuck on Baba Ram Dass back in the day. And he had some really good stuff, but it was like, that's all he spoke about. And I was like, well, what about this? Well, yeah, he was okay. But I was like, and we didn't argue, but we had discussions. And that's what you need to have with your own self. Is this really fit me in my heart? Does this really seem like this is my shaman journey? Is this a part of my 10,000 steps? Maybe it's going to the hospital one day a month and volunteering for 2 hours. Maybe in the kids' ward, maybe in the cancer section. Who knows? Maybe there's something else that you can do. Maybe there's just an elderly person who needs some help and you go over and volunteer for a couple of hours once a month and just go visit the people. Maybe it's a relative of yours. Maybe you should take the time and go say hi to a relative. But to the point of this matter is that for every step that you take to gain more wisdom and intellect, for each step that you understand that more knowledge is the power of the Zen, not necessarily the power of self or the power over other people. It's the power over yourself. It is the Zen and the essence inside of you that matters. And each person on their 10,000, hey, Quartz, how are you? And every person who's on that 10,000 step journey, I can't tell you which is the first one. And I dang sure can't tell you when the last step is, because in my humble opinion, I just have another journey. I've taken several journeys of 10,000 steps, inside, outside, upside, downside. I've taken 10,000 steps inside the earth, crawling around in caves, and until you go spelunking in caves that very few people have ever been in, and you understand that you're a mile inside Mother Earth, and you're looking at something that quite possibly no one has ever seen before. And in my mind, that is an exceptional journey. Why did I always go to wilderness areas? And when I go, I still do. It's because in the wilderness area, nobody wants to go because it's wild. I take my own water. I take my own pooper. I take my own stuff. And when I go, I don't have to rely on anybody or anything. I got all my stuff with me. But the thing is that, well, I say I don't require a lot, but I'll fill the back of my pickup truck with, um, buckets and for toting water from a stream and, so a couple of cooking apparatus and a tender and a few tarps, because I love to put tarps up to, for when, rain and dew and things like that. But, I'm not into a bunch of lawn chairs and stuff like that. Nah, I'll take one cooler, and that'll be good for everything, and it may not even be a very big cooler. And I'll take but I got one cooler that's my dry box with my foodstuffs in it, and the other cooler for ice and stuff like that. But anyway, but to the point, yeah, I take stuff with me, but it's not like I don't take a kitchen sink, but I do take a dish pan, So how is the weather out there? A little chilly tonight, Quartz, but not too bad. We had a rain overnight and some drizzle during the day today, but not too bad. Thanks for asking. Hope everything's all going well with you, Quartz. The last live tube feed I was in got interrupted. I know that something is being done right when that happens. Absolutely. I understand what you're talking about, Quartz. So this journey of 10,000 steps, you have to look at it from your own point of view, obviously. Then no one can make that decision. And that's one of the things I find, a little disuseful from the Christians because they'll walk up to you and go, if you don't have the blood of Jesus on you, you ain't going nowhere. And it's like, what? But what about Confucius? What? You blaspheme, Mr. Hawkeye. Okay, all right, here we go. But let's just talk about the spiritualness of it. Actua Raz Starseed Council, something. Okay. Um, but with that said, though, the whatever journey you take, understand that it is. So one of the things that I was reading in one of my trying to prepare was trying to get a little bit more information from other places. But anyway, um, I realized that the words that I've been speaking, I've changed them around a little bit. But Confucius has been saying the same kinds of things. The Zen masters, and for thousands of years, have been teaching these core values of shamanism. So it's like I was looking for something like really cool and but it just seemed like kind of some of the stuff I already knew. But I've been practicing this for a long time. But anyway, it's not about me. But you have to be able to look in other places for inspiration, if you will, for knowledge. There are times when I look at someone, I go, I don't know crap about that right there, but there's something about it that maybe I should look into. It seems a little weird on the outside, but then I've gotten into certain things and I go, wow, I didn't know that. It's not like I'm going to go out and be a biochemist, but that's not the thing. I've studied some biochemistry and so forth over the years, and I know interactions of certain things, but to the point though, it's the understanding that things can mix or not mix. Certain things do, and certain things you don't mix bleach and ammonia, that'll create a toxic gas and kill your ass. I mean, and I can't remember the times I actually did that, but to the point, the baking soda and vinegar will make a volcano. Here we go. It'll also put fires out, by the way. It creates a foam. But just for shits and giggles, back in the day, we'd have them big, quart Coke bottles, or Pepsi or whatever, and you put some vinegar and some water, and you tie a little packet of baking soda in like a little piece of napkin or something, or yeah, and tie a bread tie around it, and then put it inside the top of the cap and flip it up, flip the bread tab over, so the vinegar is just below the baking soda in this little pouch. But when you shake it up, put the cap back on. But when you shake it up, man, that thing will spew foam. But if you've got a grease fire on your stove and you don't have a fire extinguisher, you could make your own fire extinguisher with baking soda and vinegar. Doesn't matter what kind of vinegar, as long as it's vinegar. But the thing is that, whoa, so there are things that, understanding a little bit about basic chemistry in some ways. Now, do I know what the chemical thing is for baking soda? No. Do I know what the thing is? No. But I know what the interaction is between the two of them. Volcano. But the thing is so an understanding of basic things gives you an understanding of greater things. Well, if I can mix, baking soda and vinegar and it makes there must be other things out there in the world that do similar or greater or lesser to that extent. It just opens up another pathway to your brain. Oh, I didn't know that. Part of the 10,000 steps. So you want to learn about spirituality? Then if you only read the Bible, then you can't understand everything there is about spirituality. By definition, you can't. I got the hiccups. Hang on. Because you only studied one religion and only one type of spirituality. Now, way back in the day, I studied witchcraft and demonology, not because I wanted to be a demon or a witch. I wanted to find out if that shit was true. Oh boy, did I learn a thing or two. Enough to know to go mess not to go messing there. But I had to go into the dark side to find out if the light even existed. Now, I've asked people, be careful what you research. But if you're doing certain things and you want a little bit of spiritual knowledge, then you must read about different types of magic. What, Hawkeye? Hang on there. Just hang with me a second. Because there are forces of nature. There is the spoken word, there are written symbols or sigils, there are spells, if you will, which to Christians are spells, are our prayers. So you got to go into, and I don't mean going trying to recreate nothing, but you got to skip over and you got to like, oh, I didn't know they did that shit. Whoa, you mean what? Oh, and they use power and the earth and oh, so I'm not saying that you should go out there and learn how to, conjure up a demon. Far from it. But you must understand that it is possible. What? Yep. Because if you can call an angel, and I've had them in my house. Actually, I didn't call them that night, this one particular time, but they showed up because they needed to. I needed the information, and they needed to show me. But anyway, but to the point though, I read enough about witchcraft and sorcery and things to understand that there is magic in nature and that holy men, well, if you really go back into some of this stuff, the real Saint Francis, not this fraud that calls himself Pope Francis, but anyway, you know my feelings on that. But that Saint Francis, the own the clergy in Rome had heard about him healing children and so forth using herbs and things. Well, people have been using herbs since the beginning of time to eat and to fix wounds and make poultices and so forth. But the fact that St. Francis was, lived in the country, he was a hermit of sorts, and people would come to him, and he would pray with them and so forth and heal them with his quote magical touch, which is he learned about different plants and medicines. And I got a crap load of books over here, and that's for another story. I got all kinds of books on healing. Where is it? Anyway, it's sitting right here on the table. I got like 20 books sitting here. But anyway, about the healing of plants and different plants and things and so forth. But anyway, so you don't have to practice witchcraft to read enough about it to understand that, oh my God, somebody is really practicing this stuff and they're really trying to do this yet. That's where the truth lies. Now, so when you understand that, quote, all things are possible, then you understand, well, then if there's this really good light, then there's can be some really nasty dark too. Now, speaking about that, the darkness hides things, but the darkness in itself is not evil. Now, there are people who are like, whoa, it's dark and therefore it's evil. And there are critters who live in the darkness that you may never see during the daytime. But you say, well, does that mean that they're evil? Well, there are a lot of religions and a lot of Native Americans who, and I've talked about this before, about the owl and what owl medicine is. And because it hangs out at nighttime and swoops in, I mean, you can't hear an owl. I mean, that's why they're so good at night hunting. But the thing is you say, oh, because owls flying at night, and and owls, and maybe owls are associated with witches and Wiccans and sorcerers and well, yeah, but so are peregrine falcons, and so are frogs, and so are cats, and so are so every person that owns a cat is therefore somehow tied in with witchcraft and sorcery. I mean, this is sort of the mentality of that. Well, well, okay, so great witches or warlocks or whatever, they had, cats as familiars. Some of them might have had a dog. There are many tribes who used to have wolves. You know, that the shaman had a wolf alternative. He was a medicine man with wolf magic, if you will. White wolf, black wolf, gray wolf. But to the point, though, it's like, but well, because he's got a wolf, does that mean that he's some kind of no? So we have to look at these things in our 10,000 steps of in our journey. Each one of these little lessons is a step on the ladder to enlightenment, if you will. So on this step, you say, well, the earth ain't really flat, it's round. Oh, okay. And you go up a step. But there are a lot of places on the earth that are so freaking flat, it looks like the planet is flat. Oh, okay. Next step up. So there are different things that you learn on each step. If you think of stairway to heaven, all right. But and she's buying a never mind. And she's riding a trailways to Quitman. That was a song back in the day. The Stairway to Heaven. It was she's riding a trailways to Quitman, which is in Georgia. But anyway, it's a little bit of Southern humor from around here. But and it was a really funny song too, just by the way. But anyway, but each of us is going to, if you get fall down drunk and go puke to the porcelain god, you're going to remember that one. You're going to remember, oh my God, that toilet smelled like pee and poop, and I had my head down in it. My nose was touching the water. I don't want that no more. Is that a lesson or not? Now, some people have to repeat that lesson a few times. I know I did. But, there were times like, no, I'm not getting that stinking drunk again. No, I don't want to puke and heave, But that's one of the steps of knowledge. Now, to those people who, and I don't mean to like be all, goody two shoes or whatever, but if you've never gotten so drunk that you've had to hug the porcelain god, you don't have any idea of what I'm talking about. So in that lesson, in that 10,000 steps, that's not one of yours. Okay, I'm not saying everybody needs to go stick their head in a commode, but until you have, you don't know what it's like. I'm just saying. So, it living in Florida, we wore flip flops everywhere, and, sand spurs. Oh my God, the sand spurs. And, if you've never walked through a sand spur bed, and, come out hopping, stringing, ow, 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 and sit for the next 30 minutes picking them little buggers out of the bottom of your feet, then you don't know what a sand spur is like. It's not that you're an idiot or that, no, that's just not part of your journey. But for all of us kids who grew up in Florida, we knew what sand spurs were. Now, I don't know if they still exist or not, but, that's from the 60s. But to the point, though, that was part of my journey. And to all of us kids who grew up in that era down in Tampa and Florida and put up with the itchy plant and by the way, the 7-minute itch or the itchy plant, there's another name for it. If you grab it by the base where there aren't any little stickly things, you can actually cut the roots off, boil them, and eat them. They're fairly nutritious. But anyway, that's they don't have them much up here in South Georgia. They kind of run out about northern Florida. But anyway, that's medicinal plants again and edibles. But to the point, though, if you've never run across an itchy plant or sand spurs, that's not part of your journey. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you should take your flip flops off and go do it. But if you've not ever done it, then how can you say, well, I know what that feels like? No, that's like me trying to say, you know what, women, ladies, with all due respect, I know what it feels like to have a baby come out my whatever hole there is down there. And can't. I have not been. I've had felt a lot of ways that may have felt like I was having a baby, but I can't say because I can't have a baby. Oh, I know how you feel. So with the knowledge of things and with being a shaman and medicine man, if you talk about somebody else's journey, that's why I talk about mine, because it's like, well, if I talk about somebody else's journey, that's in the third person. I'm talking about what he felt, not what I experienced. I experienced what he felt. No, I listened to his story. It affected me, and I had a similar story, and I'm going to tell you my story. But this person over here had a very similar one. Um, I hope this makes sense, but it's part of that 10,000 steps. You have to look at somebody else's story and go, are they full of crap? Are they just mouthing off? Did they really experience it? Are they looking for attention? Are they looking for likes or dislikes on YouTube? What's their motive? Well, my motive is to teach you all. Let's have a discussion, if you will. Let's bring up another point of view. Now, many people, and I go ahead. Let's have a dialogue. If there's something that I've said that's triggered you in a way, go ahead, vent it, but be nice about it. But let's have the conversation, because I've had lots of conversation with other people, and it's like, yeah, but this Buddha was better than the other Buddha, and it's like, what? And the Dalai Lama, well, he's okay, but this other guy, he was really the dude, and it's like, but they all had a message. Why are we looking at the personalities of the people? Well, Buddha, and Confucius, and then he went and he did, uh, okay. If I hadn't met Confucius, but I read the words that someone wrote down, did this person write them down correctly? I don't know. I mean, the book came out in 1934, the particular one I was referencing. And so it's like, the Chinese folks, I've had friends from Chinese and of Japanese descent, and who were Buddhist but the Japanese Buddhism is a different type than the Chinese and the Himalayan. There's different types of Christianity. Okay, you got that point. But with that said, though, it all boiled down to the same thing: respect for all things. Now, a person who grew up in a city, high-rise apartment, has no idea what it's like to live where I live, how I live. And that's okay. Not everybody is, designed to live on a farm down on the edge of the swamp. I get it. But you could go visit a place, not necessarily a swamp, but you could go visit a place. Sure, you can be raised in a high rise, but it's the effort you make in your 10,000 step journey. Are you willing to go out of your comfort zone and go allow nature to speak to you? Or are you just going to go, well, no, I'm going to stay in houses, really nice. Or I got my cuddles and air conditioners on. And, then your journey isn't going to be the same as mine. Not to say that I'm right and you're wrong. It's that your journey will not be the same as mine. I live in the woods. I live the woods. I was out earlier this evening checking on. I planted potatoes early, before around the last new moon, and so I've got potatoes in the ground that are already making potatoes. I'm literally a month early in growing potatoes because I listened to my spirit guide, who said, "Dave, I've had a persistent cough thingy going on for a week now, but I understand a lot of people have it this winter. But anyway, so it's like I listened to my spirit guide. Hey, Hawkeye, why wait till November? I'm sorry, February, because usually now is the time to plant your potatoes down here in the South. A few days either side of Valentine's Day is like the time to plant potatoes down here in the South. Now, when you get north of Macon, but anyway, but to the point though, I listened to myself and I was, well, wait a minute, I'm going to go ahead and plant my taters now. Spirit says we're going to have a little warm spell coming up. And I was like, well, now it got into the 20s and I had to cover them with plastic, and ants moved in on one pile of potatoes, on one potato plant. But a little bit of coffee grounds and a little bit of urine, and they moved out of my potatoes, for the moment at least. So, so I covered them with plastic, and one potato plant got a little bit of, coldness on it. Now, why am I discussing that? Because if I had not been in touch with my surroundings, with the land, I was noticing other plants in my field that are coming up that they popped up early. They're at least 3 weeks early. And so when I noticed my surroundings, I was like, my potatoes could go in now. And they may actually make thumbs up. So if you've never been outside, though, if you've never planted taters, if you've never listened to the earth, if you've never, looked around at the rest of the plants and the fauna, and my plum trees are blooming. Wrong. They're 6 weeks too early. I won't have any plums this year, I can guarantee. Why? We haven't had enough cold days, which it should be freezing right now. I should have my taters covered with plastic, and it's not. And there are trees budding out now. I mean, I got strawberries that are blooming, and it's only the 11th of February. They're a whole 3 weeks early. They shouldn't start until the 1st of March. So 2-3 weeks, but to the point, we've got an early spring already. Now, we never get away with it. Okay. So, in all of my experience, in my walk, in my journey of 10,000 steps of learning about nature, I know and I'm going to go plant some more stuff, because it's going to be warm for the next day or two. But I've got my plastic. Am I going to plant my garden and not have anything ready to cover it in case we get a killing frost? Are you kidding? One year back in, I think it was 1980, it snowed on the 15th of March in Norman, well, all down here in the South. The snow stayed on the ground for 3 days. It killed everybody planted early that year, and everybody lost their garden. I bet you there was $1 million lost in seed and fertilizer that year, just down here in this area, because we all were planting gardens back then. Anyway, but to the point though, and we couldn't save a damn thing because it snowed and it stayed that cold for 3 days. But anyway, so I know from my journey of 10,000 steps, I can plant now, but I need to have my plastic ready. Now I could just say, "Well, we won't have no more cold spells, and it'll make." No, that's just dumb. And that's how it used to be. Well, we'll take our chances and then not have a backup plan. Nah, I got backup plans. I've learned from my walk of 10,000 steps that during my knowledge, if you, if you're learning knowledge, are you listening? And if you're listening, are you learning? Wait a minute. What did I just say? Yeah. You can listen to somebody, but are you paying attention? Are you learning? Are you gaining knowledge from it? Not necessarily me, but from anybody. If somebody's having a heart-to-heart talk with you, are you listening, or are you like, well, I got something else and you're busy over here, and not condemning the chat room, but you're more listening to what the folks in the chat room are saying, which is okay. But well, wait a minute, then the person who was speaking, you weren't really listening then, were you? Oh, now I've done it. I still do it. I'm involved in the chat room and I'm not listening to the two speakers. I've had to go back and listen again and go, whoa, I missed that part. But because I was listening, but not paying attention. So the knowledge was there, but I wasn't receiving it. I was hearing it, but I wasn't paying attention. But anyway, so we got to pay attention to what we learn with our 10,000 steps. Are you going to learn not to step barefooted into a bunch of sand spurs? I hope so. That's part of the journey. That's a lesson. And you say, yeah, well, don't walk on broken glass. Well, duh. But what if you've never seen broken glass? What if you don't know what it is? I mean, when I was a kid and we used to go out on the Courtney Campbell Causeway between Tampa and St. Pete and Pinellas County. And, one of the things and I did it, we'd just, scoop out a hole in the beach right there and put a bunch of charcoal in and fire it up. And then, use a little raised thingy, a little grill, but, we cook basically, that far off the sand. Well, when the coals were done cooking, we would, just remove the grill and cover it back over with sand. Well, us little kids, we didn't pay much attention to where the fire was. And I remember one time walking across my bare feet because it was in the sand and walked right across them hot coals. Man, you talking about having some blisters on my feet. And they were all like, well, Dave, that was so stupid. Didn't you realize the fire was there? No, you idiots. You picked up the thing, covered it with sand, moved the blanket. I don't know because I was a little kid. I didn't know where there were hot coals that far under there. And then when I walked across it, I got my feet burned because I was standing on a big bed of, coals that they were trying to put out. But to the point, though, had I not known they were there, if I'd have seen them, I wouldn't have walked on them. But so was I stupid? No, but I learned a lesson. Wherever that damn fire was, I made sure I had shoes on or I didn't go back. So we learn from our 10,000 steps with blisters on our feet sometimes. But the thing is that if we just keep doing the same thing over again, that's the definition of insanity. Doing the same damn thing over again, expecting a different result. That's why so many of our politicians are, clinically insane. But anyway, they haven't learned in their journey of 10,000 steps. They're stuck. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, I know what it means for me. But I still have other journeys. I'm not done. Now you might say, well, life is a journey of 10,000 steps. Let's rephrase that. Life is made up of journeys of 10,000 steps. It ain't just like one and there's only 10,000. Nuh-uh. Every time you up your ante, if you will, in the spiritual journey. Now that 10,000 steps might be inside. It might be going into deep, dark holes and crannies that you really didn't want to go to. That's not the point. The point of the matter in the shaman training is that you must understand all things. And like for the last couple of days or so, I've had some really strange dreams, and I'm in a shed with shelves, and I've seen these shelves before, which is strange. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Why am I in this barn and doing anyway? But it was like, but there's a journey in that somehow. Not sure, but I'm not going to question it. I know that in that dream there was something about I need to put shelves up in my shop. Well, that's true. That is just absolutely true. I needed to put up a new shelf in the kitchen to hold up some of my other. I'm moving my kitchen around, so and some of the things are like in the way, but I need to put up a shelf temporarily just to hold some of the stuff until I get the kitchen moved. But to the point, that would get it off my counter, and so I need to make a shelf. Just a simple one. Plenty of boards I got. But anyway, but in the 10,000 journey issue thing, how, and this is a rhetorical question, by the way, but how many of you have had more than one journey of 10,000 steps? Some people that I have chatted with, they went through I say religious cult. Catholics are a religious cult, but they went through it and they gotten to the other side of it and looked around and went, this ain't what I thought it was. But I'm still spiritual. I still understand about some kind of creator or a God or something. Not like, everybody's trying to shove down my throat, but I have this spiritualness about me. Well, that's part of their journey. Well, part of the journey is understanding that maybe some of the things you've been taught are horse hockey, and that, oh my God, so that's one journey of 10,000 steps. The next journey is finding out with 10,000 more steps what the next part of the journey is. So the journey's never over. Well, wait. Let me back that up a little bit. We have multiple journeys in our river of life. So it's like I'm going to use my kayak or canoe experience. You get into an area and there's a log jam. You got to pull over. You got to pull your yada yada. You got to and then you get down the other side. It's still part of the whole journey, but you stopped for a log across the river, and maybe you had a picnic. Drank a soda or something, and then you got to the other side and continued your journey. So, but that was a stop in the road, not necessarily, quote, an obstacle that you couldn't go around or pass. But to the point is, you reached a certain part on your river of life, and you just had to, Well, what am I going to do? Should I go this side? Go that side? Should I pick the boat up and go? Oh, so you got decisions, but it's the same river, just different obstacles. So each one of us in our river of life, in our journey through this life, our multiple journeys, we're going to have more than one journey of 10,000 steps. One could be the inside, outside, one could be on a mountain. And I suggest that if you're really looking to be a shaman, go climb a mountain. Now, maybe it's just a hill. Go find a higher altitude in whatever area you're in. Maybe you got to climb a tower. I mean, when I was a kid, there was an old cement plant a few blocks down the road, and we'd sneak out at night from camping in the backyard and climb that sucker. I don't know if I'd climb it now, but I wasn't scared back then. I mean, I'm 12 years old, maybe, climbing up this 150, well, it's at least 50 foot up, probably higher than that, but the cement tower. And we'd sit up there at night before, we knew anything about smoking pot or anything like that, and just sit up there and watch the traffic, and watch the stars from up this high point, you know. And there was something zen and spiritual about climbing up the tower and sitting up there. We didn't do any vandalism or anything like that. We were vandals by climbing it, but anyway. But to the point, though, having that memory of sitting up there and looking over the neighborhood there in Tampa, I mean, it was right there on Bush Boulevard at the time and the railroad tracks there. But anyway, to the point, though, that's a memory I still have of being not above everyone else, but higher than everyone else. Smoke if you got them. But I think you get my point. It was the experience of being up above everyone that made me feel, oh my God, this is what a bird feels like. Oh my God. So it wasn't that I was better or above another person, spiritual or anything like that, but I felt I could see what it was like to be up above them from a perspective point of view, part of the journey, part of the river of life. Each thing builds on the other. So I'm going to close with this a little bit here. No one else can tell you when your 10,000 step journey begins or ends. When somebody tries to interject, well, I think that you should listen. But if they say, well, I think that if they start off with that subject line, you should listen at as an actor would to a director. There's a critique in there. The person's going to give you their personal idea, their personal criticism of what they think you should be doing. And so it's like, okay, give it your best shot. But I listen to other folks still. After all these years and all my experience, I'm still listening because everybody's got a different point of view. And in one of these little readings, I was saying that I went back to Confucius. And Confucius says, my pupils come, I'm kind of paraphrasing this, but my pupils come to learn from me. But in learning from me, I learn about myself. And any teacher worth their salt will say, you know what, this student asked me a question in a particular way no one has ever asked me before. And now I got to think in my little teacher head, what the bleep is this guy wanting here? How do I answer this question? What? I thought I'd heard everything. What? So the teacher, unless they're just become some stagnant SOB or somebody just to get a paycheck, they are still learning. So as a teacher myself, I got to listen to other people's point of views. Now I'm getting to the point I got to say that some of these point of views are getting like round and round and round and round. Please give me another point of view. Now I know in my discussions about shaman that I'm going to talk about love and compassion and core values. But each time I try to have a conversation about it, though, I try to pick a topic. Yes, it's all inclusive, but I'm trying not to repeat. the same thing over again. I'm desperately trying. Why am I quiet sometimes? Because I feel like I'm just going to rehash some of the stuff I've already talked about. However, maybe spirit will enlighten me and say, maybe I should explain this differently. Let's have the conversation again, but let's bring up a different topic. 10,000 steps. Hmm. So I blessings. Let me, Quartz, you've been writing over here. Glad your daughter is doing well. Yes, it was my daughter's mother, my first wife, who was so sick, Quartz, by the way. Um, Quartz says, someone on Twitter just said that Palladians are demons. I blocked them for that. The world is very frustrating, LOL. Even if someone is a starseed or a light worker, it doesn't mean that they are going to meet what you expect. This is why I try not to be attached. You're right. They are still learning. Exactly. And these folks who, like, some of these starseed people, some of them are just downright rude. And it's like, what? And in my world, you're included. Come on over. We can have conversation, but I not necessarily part of their world, you know, even though my core consciousness. And if you, the things about the Palladians and other things, it's like, for example, not, I think it was Cliff High that was, talking, I think with, Leak Project. And I didn't listen to the whole thing. I need to go back, but I've listened to Cliff talk about this before, and about the fact that we're being, we're going to be invaded by insects, alien insect beings. And it's like, hang on here. There are insect beings, but I've seen other beings, and I've very rarely ever seen anything that looked insectoid. In my 66 years, I've seen some creepy ass shit, but nothing that looked like a giant bug. Not to say they don't exist. That's not my point. But in all I've seen fairies, I've seen, in some of my other videos, there's been orbs that move around the screen. I've taken pictures of orbs, okay. But I've never seen a giant mantis type being in any way, shape, or form. Doesn't mean, again, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. But my burden of proof is like cave paintings. When I know that the ant people, these were winged beings, they were angels, not insects. They were portrayed on a cave wall. So in my learning and understanding of this, oh well, that's a bug, that's an insect, we're all gonna be, oh man, here we go with the porn, the fear porn stuff again. And I really thought better of Cliff Hyde than we're going to be, overrun with insects. Now, insects, we are being overrun, but by beetles and worms and tobacco worms and tomato worms and hornworms and this worm and that worm. We've been under attack down here in South Georgia for several years. I mean, the fight against the bugs is unbelievable, but they're bugs. They're not bugs. Just saying. But to the point, though, I'm going to keep my mind open. But do I think that we're going to be attacked? That's all there is? And, I was watching the star cluster Pleiades. I've said this before, but because, Quartz, you brought it up. When I was 9, 10, 11 years old, looking out the window from our house in Tampa, I could see it rising out of my bedroom window at night. I would sit there and stare at this little cluster of stars, not knowing what the heck it was, but knowing that there I was connected somehow with it. And for years I wouldn't even talk about it until this idea of the Pleiadian people and blue eyes and this and that, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but to the point, it's like my star family has said, yep, you're Palladian. But it's not like I try to wear it on my sleeve, like, okay, everybody, I'm Palladian now, this is it. No, 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 no. If that's where my star seed thing came from, okie dokie. But I'm not going to be against somebody that looks more like a lizard, as long as they're kind, as long as they're decent, There are lots of other beings out there, just like in the dark. There are shadow beings that aren't bad. They're just beings that are made of shadows, and they are in the dark because you can't, anyway, but it's a dimensional type of thing. So if we think all dark beings are equal, the Palladians are evil, the things that these are evil, the Zeta Reticula. Well, I got my thing about the Zetas, but we'll leave it at that. And I notice that some of these people are trying to well, Planet X was supposed to be here by now. I'm just saying. Planet X was supposed to have been here by now. It's not. The Earth was supposed to have rolled by now. It hasn't. Just saying. With all these people for the last 25 years now, and we're going on 30 with some of these folks, but the world is going to come to end in the next couple weeks. Fear is what these entities live off of. The adrenochrome, they can smell it on us like a bad hamburger, but the thing is that, so where are we on our spiritual journey? Are we going to allow ourselves to accept that there are these other entities that could possibly be around? Sure. Now, I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Could some aliens be trying to? Yeah. Do some of them look like insects? Yeah. And some of them look like big cat beings, and some of them look like this, and some of them look like giant lizards. But it's how the being reacts, and what is the being's core reality? What's their journey of 10,000 steps? So I say our journey of 10,000 steps begins with the understanding that, oh my God, there's something more than me on this planet. The next step is like understanding, oh my God, nature is so beautiful and so wondrous. And not just to look at, but it functions and how it functions. And watching an ant's trail and finding food, and then all the other ants show up mysteriously and carry off this big chunk of beetle that, what? Noticing that, that things are growing. Do you pay attention to your surroundings? It's all part of the journey. And each step is a lesson. Every single step is a lesson. Now, it might only be a T90 grain of sand lesson, but for each of those steps of the 10,000, it becomes the journey. Now, there's a lot of information that says every 7 years, our whole bodies, every atom within its molecule has regenerated over 7 years. There's a 7-year itch. There's a lot about 7, okay? But with that said, though, so maybe every 7 years is another journey, is another 10,000 steps. Just saying, it's possible. But if you look at it as well, maybe this week was a journey of 10,000 steps. Maybe yesterday was a journey in itself of 10,000 steps. It doesn't mean that you can't have multiple journeys. You might have 10,000 journeys with how many, a million steps. Anyway, but it's not about a math thing. It's about understanding that each step is knowledge, especially when you take the walk and go, I'm going to learn something from here. I'm going to take a leisurely walk in the park, but I'm going to allow myself to open up. Maybe you see this tiny little flower that's blooming in the middle of winter. Maybe there's a bird chirping up there. Maybe there's a bird you haven't seen. There's something. If you allow yourself to be open and to learn at every step, that's the awareness. That's the art of becoming a shaman, the awareness and the opening, and that, oh my God. And you don't have to count the steps. It's not how many actual steps you take, it's the idea. So know that I love you all. Thank you for hanging out with me. We are always learning. And I got to say that there are some folks, though, that just keep going around and round and round in circles. And I will do my best not to do that. I promise. That's why I get quiet sometimes. It's like, nah, man, I'm just going to rehash the same shit. But anyway, I love chatting with y'all. I do. I do. Um, you're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Quartz to all my dear friends. I miss you all. I've been away in the head. There's been some interesting things coming around, like this discussion, and I got another one coming up. I've got. I want to show them to you before I get, because I'm seriously like talking. Yeah, these are some of the books that I'm going to be talking about. Okay, just want to show you, and there's three stacks this size of books on spirit medicine, on the song lines, I Ching, and then there's a couple of my really favorites, like this particular one here, Animal Speaks, and it says the spiritual and magical powers of creatures great and small. And I've had this book, oh God, for 30 years almost. Let me see when this one was. 1998. 20 years. So I've had this book for 20 years. Here's another one here, just to give you a. This is a Sun Bear book, dancing with the wheel, medicine wheels, how to do them, the respect of the medicine wheels, the circle, the positionings, and so when I was having, and Quartz, that is a lot of books, but this is just part of them. I mean, I went upstairs and there are three shelves of things, and I just brought the stuff that I just wanted to kind of show off this evening about some of the things. It's like, well, so Hawkeye, where did you learn this stuff? Well, from many books. And the best thing to do is like, well, I can get this online. If you really truly want to be a shaman, then you need to have it in print. I'm just saying. Because they can change the format. Your computer might be down. If I lose electricity, I can read these books with a candle. I can read them during the daytime, So it's like, but if the crap hits the fan for any reason, then what do you have? I have tangible books, and I just like I used to I used to belong to a book club. That was one thing, but then I realized I don't really need a book club. I just need to look for a book a month. Pick something, a subject. Okay, well, shamanism, legends of the American Indians, the 500 nations and so forth. And so over the years, now sometimes it took me 2 or 3 months to save up the money to buy a book. But the thing is that I would allow myself to buy it. And it's like, well, I don't know, that book was $25. Yeah, but after 20 years, I still got that book. I still have it in my possession. So I can sit down, I can share the knowledge with you. I don't have to look online. I got it. You know what I'm saying? I can bookmark things and it's not part of the net. So I suggest to people, during the internet is great, but do a little bit of homework, but buy a book. Now I've purchased a few books in my time on crystals and things, and I thought a couple of them was just hogwash. But there'd be a paragraph or two in a chapter, and I'd go, but I'd learn something from that. So the book was $4.95. Okay, so a big deal. But in general, I was like, yeah, well, there wasn't too much interesting. Yeah, all right, that's somebody's opinion, and oh well, but where's your proof? And but then other books are like, stated this, that, and the other thing. But the thing is that I've got 7 or 8 books on crystals. Why? So I can get an overview of what other people are studying crystals and why are they studying. Oh, good afternoon and good evening, Miss Marie. I was thinking about you and hoping things were all right down in your area of the planet. But with that said, though, it's like, I read several books on crystals, And I find, where everybody agrees. Well, everybody agrees that there are different dimensions in crystals. Okay. But you just got home. Well, blessings to you, Marie. And good to see you around again. But the thing is though, with people, it's like, then wait a minute. If you only read one book on crystals, well, then you're short sighted simply because there are 30 books out there to read. Now, do they all say the same thing? Do they all? No. They may have similarities, but it's the differences I look for. Well, this person thinks this. That's interesting. Let me give it a try. Blah, blah, blah. But the thing is well, that's just another crystal book. But is it? Well, I don't know. Sometimes I've given books to people when I was like, this wasn't my best crystal book, but it's got some good information. Here, take this and read it. To the other person that I allowed them to read it, it was like, here, go ahead. They went, oh my God, it opened up their eyes. So it may not have been the perfect thing for me, but because I had the book, I could share that knowledge with somebody. Not just talk about it, but here, you read it. Now, come back out, bring the book back and let's have a discussion about what you feel about crystals. And I'll bring up this other book I just read and we'll discuss it to a higher level of thought, to a higher level of spirituality. Let's discuss how this can be or how it can transpire. So anyway, a lot of going around in circles with some of these things. I know I'm trying my best, but anyway, so my plan is that I'm still, you've seen the book. So I've been doing some house cleaning. I couldn't get upstairs to my library. That I'm going to do a video about, some medicinal plants. And I'm going to pick like, I don't know, 5. And then I'm going to go into 5 different books and tell what each different book speaks about that. Because not every book says the same thing about mullein or blackberry leaves or pine bark tea or anything. So it's like, you have to read stuff that's just sounds silly, stupid, and otherwise, well, I don't, that might not pertain to me. But there are times when I've spent $10 on a book that only one chapter related to me and only 2 or 3 paragraphs in that book made any sense to me because it just seemed like a bunch of rhetoric and somebody's opinion. But the thing is that I still got a value out of the book. That's my point. So all of these books, did I agree with everything? Do I speak about everything in them? No. But I use what I've learned from them to say, well, in this book, I learned this, and it's a valuable lesson. Confucius said this 2,000 years ago. This was his lesson. The I Ching and I Ching, excuse me. So it's like, so if you're only going to study one person's thing or one person's philosophy, or how can you become a good shaman? How can you be a well-rounded, uh, a well flat earth spiritual being? I'm sorry, that was a little jab at the flat earthers, but I'm sorry. But each of us has our own level of reality in that. So if you're convinced of that, okie doke. And like I said, there are flat earthers who will cuss me out, and I'm an idiot because I don't believe in flat earth. But at the same time, I just go, well, that's your point of view. You belong in my world, but I don't belong in yours because I will allow you the fact that that's what you believe. It's not hurting anybody. There's no baby killing involved or any sacrifices. It's you believe the earth is flat. Okie doke. I still believe it's round. But please, I will accept you in my circle because we can have a discussion. But I don't belong in yours because you refuse to accept that it might actually be round. So whose journey of 10,000 steps? Now, I'm not saying, okay, but if you're going to omit a possibility, Now, do I believe it with my heart? Nah, but I've been in some really flat places. And I can see why people have questions with some of this stuff, but in my heart of hearts, it ain't flat. But to the point, a flat earther, I welcome you. Sit down. Let's talk about other stuff, and it's okay. I'll allow. I'm not going to beat you up because you don't believe in the round one, but let's keep it civil. So, but how many other people about religions? Well, there are some Baptists down here. Well, if you're primitive Baptist, well, then you don't agree with the Baptist, and the Methodist, and oh my God, if Jesus was real, he's looking down, going, "These assholes, what do they think they're up to?" I tried to teach them how to be spiritual, and they started a bunch of churches, and now all of them are arguing amongst themselves. It was about witches, or what did I really say? When it was written 60 years after I died. Hang on a minute. What was the purpose of his teachings? Even if it was written 60 years after he died, what's the purpose? The purpose is in the story. The purpose is for us to find those journeys of 10,000 steps. I still want to learn how to walk on water, and I know it's possible. I'm a little less possible. I know that I can pass through a wall, but that's like a long way down the line for me and my shaman thingy. But I know that if I think light, that I can levitate and maybe not sink in the water, or but anyway, I think I could learn how to sort of walk on water. Now, could I walk across Lake Michigan? Nah, but I could walk through across a mud puddle. And I've talked about it in previous videos where I've been walking in the swamp back here in the back, and I'd walk in a muddy spot and only go down that deep. Somebody smaller than me would step. I'd tell them, walk in my footsteps, and they'd sink up to their ankles in mud. And I go, and they go, Hawkeye, how'd you do that? And it's like, you have to think light. Oh, well, that's bullshit. No, it's not. You asked me why I didn't sink into mud, and I think light. I think I'm a feather walking across the mud so I don't sink in. Now, it doesn't work every time, but there's been more times than not that I didn't get sink up to my ankles. And other people were like sloshing around. I'm going, it really worked for me, you know. But so in my reality, I can see these things happening, and I can understand it with certain mental thoughts and our process, and if we truly believe it. And I stuck my hand in some fire, and I burned the crap out of it, and I still have the scar. And it was part of a ceremony that I did. And the thing is that it didn't get infected. It was sore as crap for a week, but it didn't bubble up. There was no sign of any kind of blister on my hand, and you can't really. Oops, sorry about that. You can't really see it, but it's right in here. It was a large area that was burned, and it was part of the ceremony. And when I used the coals on my hand, I didn't feel the burning at all until after the ceremony, and then my hand started hurting, which was weird, but it never got infected. And I mean, I've had smaller burns that got infected and nasty and everything, and I literally was rolling around coals on the top of my hand, live coals on my hand, and it never got. But I was in the ceremony at the time. It was a spiritual ceremony, and it required that I do that. I didn't know it was part of it till I got there, which was a little weird in itself. But that's the journey of 10,000 steps. I learned that I could actually burn, but I could detach my mind from the burning sensation, much like those folks who walk across coals. Now, their feet have got calluses on them like yay thick, but to the point you could still get burned. But I've walked across hot coals before, and it stung, but didn't burn. Now, this was after me being a little kid and walking on coals and getting my feet burnt. But back then, I didn't have the spiritual awareness. So I didn't protect my feet with spiritual thought. I didn't surround myself, with the protection. But now that I understand these things and understand that even more so that it could be physically possible with under the right circumstances. So my journey of 10,000 steps, I'm on another one. It's springtime here in South Georgia, a little early. So I'm on this journey of 10,000 steps this spring to see what spring's going to bring. I hope it brings some spinach. I planted a bunch of spinach, ain't none of it come up yet. But anyway, we'll see. But the taters are doing good, so there is still goodness out there. And I'll take a good baked potato any day, or some, I got some of those new potatoes, the red ones, ooh, with a little light skin on them. Throw a couple of those in, with some black eye, with some peas or some beans, and cook them up. My goodness gracious me, a little bit of butter on top. Oh, time for supper. But anyway, so it's been 2 hours now, and I think my heart picks up on energies, and thus it feels like it's spasming and palpitating. That sucks. Um, Marie says, I am open to possibility. Yeah, because those things I keep to myself, knowing that people have very ideas and so on. Yeah. Court, you say that I dislike people that fight over beliefs. You are wrong. I'm right. This is wrong. This is right. Absolutely. Just stop it. Let's have the conversation. But, there are times when I just know in my heart that some of these people are just batshit crazy and wrong. I still will allow, all right, you ain't hurting nobody. It's, but anyway, trying to tell me how I think is wrong. Absolutely, Quartz. Marie says, we're getting gale force winds. Whoa. Wow. Hold down the fort there, Marie. Quartz, I think my heart picks up on. I read that part. Cool. I cooked up some homegrown sweet corn, sweet potatoes, and cherry toms for lunch the other day. Oh, shush, Marie, making me hungry. I got peas and stuff ready to go in. So I was just waiting for the moon to be in the right spot for me to do it. And after this rain we had today, it's time to put some other stuff in the ground. So, but anyway, oh my gosh, Marie, that sounds so wonderful. Oh man, homegrown sweet corn, there ain't nothing like it. Oh, and sweet taters, that's, oh, by the way, if you've made it this far in this journey, sweet potatoes are one of the bestest mind body. Edgar Casey, Edgar was way up on sweet potatoes, baked, broiled, fricasseed, you name it, fried sweet potatoes. Ooh, thin them like not quite potato chips, and throw them in just a little bit of light oil, like sunlight oil or sunflower oil or something like that, or a little bit of peanut oil, and fry them puppies up. Oh my God. And then sprinkle maybe just a little bit of sugar on top of them to bring that sweetness out. Oh my heavens. Mama spanked me for being naughty because that was, whew, oh man, it gives me palpitations just thinking about them sweet taters like that. But sweet potatoes themselves are very high in all the things necessary, even though it's grown underground. It has properties of things above the ground. Anyway, just pass that along. Yeah, I bought pea seeds today and cucumber. Yep, I found a whole bunch of seeds on the stairs that I bought at the end of last season, and I didn't get it. We had that hurricane came through and messed up my garden. I still have a pear tree to cut up out in my garden so I can get my rows back. But anyway, so in America would be hard to grow your own. Be worried the seeds are GMO. GMO seeds won't grow. Period, Marie. The seeds I get are heirloom seeds mostly, and they come from where all the farmers get their seeds from. I go to the feed store. I go to where the farmers go to get their seeds. I don't buy packets from, Now I do buy packets from certain stores because they'll have 4 or 5 of them for $1. And I just want that, cilantro or that. But anyway, for any of my major seeds, I go and get seeds that are made by these seed companies that have been um, around for a long time. You know, But yeah, find a feed and seed. You know, if find somebody that's selling horse feed or rabbit feed or something like that, or chicken feed, and go in and see what kind of seeds they got. A lot of times they're a lot cheaper. I mean, for a buck, I get a handful of seeds. Where for a buck, I'm going to get, maybe a dozen seeds at the bottom of this packet. Just saying. And a lot of times the seeds that the farmers get, they are the newest seeds. They are from last season coming into the spring. So the seeds, when I go into the feed store, most of the times, because these guys have been doing business for 30 years. I mean, I'm going to the same feed store that I went to when I moved up here to Georgia. Now the old man's died, but the sons are still running the feed store. So, but anyway, with that said, though, time to plant. And if you can find natural fertilizer, you know somebody that's got some chickens. Chicken manure is the best fertilizer, and you gotta, I've got where the chickens roost. Well, there's a lot of fresh there. You know what I'm saying? Manure. But where they walk and poop, it just there's a crust that by now is about this thick. I need to go back in there and clean it up. But what I do is I take my wheelbarrow in there every couple of months and I peel off that layer where the chickens have pooped, and I'll take it and I'll put it in its own little pile, and I'll let it rest for a week or two. But then I never put it fresh in, meaning that I don't put it on any fresh vegetables, but I will till it in a week before I plant. So the manure's already, it's already had a chance to off gas before I ever put it in the wheelbarrow. And then I give it a week outside the wheelbarrow to kind of, get its thing going. And then I put it in the ground a week or so before, at least a few days before I actually plant my seeds. So it's had a chance to become part of the soil. So anyway, but chicken manure is the best. I've done my research. I went around and round and round and round. And my friend came by today and he goes, Hawkeye, when's the last time you had any chickens lay an egg? And I was like, damn near a year now. And he goes, why do you still have them? And I said, because they're living fertilizer. He goes, well, why don't you eat a couple? And I was like, I've got some of my cats are, I'm sorry. I've got some cats that are, I said cats again. I have some chickens that are older than some of my cats. I'd rather shoot a cat and skin it and eat it than I would my chickens. My chickens gave me something. They're my baby girls, The cats, well, not that I'm going to eat a cat. That's not my point. If I was going to eat one, I'd probably pick a cat I didn't know versus the chickens that are my friends. Just saying. So, I'm going to feed them until they die of old age. That's how I look at it. But they're always giving me fertilizer. I might bitch and complain, well, I spent $20 on food for my chickens. And yeah, but okay, but I got fertilizer. All I got to do is shovel it out and put it in the garden. So anyway, Marie says sometimes the packet ones, the stores don't grow properly. That's very true. Quartz says Earth needs to reset her soil, water, and air. And I have been getting that Elon Musk is going to allow people to use the patent for free energy as long as it's being used for good. We'll see what Elon and them have got up their sleeves. Just saying. I can't wait for one day to see those people, what I really look like beyond the physical. We all look breathtaking, Never mind. In my female self, I have these. Stop it. OG, at least chickens supply the fertilizer. That's right, Quartz. So, I mean, it's like, and they're my chickens. I love to hear them out there cackling, and now that they've learned when I let them out of the pen, I don't actually have to herd them anymore. They watch me and it's like, ooh, he's going for food. I let him out of the chicken pen to go through parts of the garden to, dig and check and, eat weeds and stuff, and scratch around and let them air it out and be free range for a while. But and there's 15 cats in the neighborhood and I know the cats can't hold on to all these. So anyway, but the thing is that, all I got to go is now that they've learned, I'm going to let them out into the garden to roam around a little bit. But when I start heading back to the chicken pen, they know I'm going to go get feed. And it only took a couple of times. So chickens ain't stupid. So where I thought I was going to have trouble rounding up the chickens, first few times was a little weird. But then they learned what I gave them a pattern. I'm going to open the gate, let you out, and then I'm going to go get your food. Well, when they see that, it's like, I don't have to hurt them. I don't have to like, come on, nah. They like, oh, there he goes. We know the cue now. And it's like, so now it's like after a month of like, chasing them around, one got loose, none of them go running off anymore. They all like keep an eye on me. Ooh, where's he going back for the feed? Ah, so they've trained me, but I've also trained them. So now I can let them free range, but when I want them to go back in the pen, it's just, okay, chickens, come on, babies, and they're back. I don't even need a sheepdog. You know what I'm saying? But to the point, I do. How can you herd chickens? I joked about it a couple of months ago, but it's working just fine. Unbelievably, like, oh, come on. No, I'm herding my chickens. I let them out. They run around the garden. Come on, chick, back. What? I never thought it would be possible. Not like that. And it is as simple as that. It didn't start out that way, but I started out with the intent of me and the chickens are going to learn. I'm going to let them out. They're going to know not to come over here. And if they get over towards a certain place, I just shoo them. I don't try to scare them. And I go, no, you're not allowed over here. Go over there, and they look at me like, oh, okay. I just planted taters over here and I don't want you picking them up, but to the point though, they learned. So it's like, well, you said, well, chickens are stupid. No, they're not. No, they're not, and just because they're not laying eggs does not mean I'm going to, let the ruffians from the woods eat them alive and chew them up. And nah, they're still my babies. But that's the crazy shaman in me. I see value in all things, even after their usefulness, if you will. Well, they're not laying eggs. You should get rid of them. Matter of opinion. But anyway, I digress. So with love and honor to all of you, let's see. So somebody wrote some more. Yes, Earth does all the elites want to leave the planet? I say good riddance. Let them leave. Let them get out of here. I agree with you, Marie. It's not going to go the way the cabal wants it to. Yeah, it's not going the way they want it to, Quartz. You're absolutely right. They don't get to decide the fate of the planet because we all stood up and said, F no. No, you can't have the planet the way you want it. Look at the yellow vest protest. Yep, they thought it was just going to die. Oops. Well, we've been yellow vesting it for several years now, those of us in this little community, in that we've made our protest known. Nope, I'm not swallowing that crap no more. Nope, I'm not going to join on that freak train no more. Nope, going to stay off of that crap. So those of you all that are in here, and I'm certain that each one of you has had some type of residual effect on someone else. So it's not just you, but it's the people around you and me and other folks, and we rub off, whether we believe it or not. And sometimes that stink don't wash off, but I'm just kidding. But no, actually, there's some stink that is just so evil that when people see it, they just can't make their brain go back. But anyway, I'm sure that I have had an effect on people. Quartz, I know you have, positively. I mean, you've had an effect on my life just because you come out and you hang out in the chat rooms and will state your opinion, whether we agree or not, but we agree on more than not. But to the point, though, it's just like, man, you guys hang out, we hang out, and we do this. I mean, I was going to stop 30 minutes ago, and it's an hour and 2 hours and 13 minutes, and I'm still yakking. But it's because of your questions, and I love the interaction, I really do. Because I do think everybody's story is important. I learned from you, Quartz. I learned from you, Marie. And we keep passing on the good and the love. And 2 or 3 years ago, I would bet that you all would agree with me. It didn't feel like this. I mean, 2 years ago, I was scared shitless. I was like, this ain't good. They are going to win. And then I realized through the angel messages and other things and hanging out and doing more research that, wait a minute, I don't accept this. I refuse to let them win this. Even if they might have control of all the money, they still don't have control of me. I mean, I choose not. I will play along with them because I gotta. But do I believe in them? Am I gonna? No. No. I'm not. I'm gonna take what you and I use this as being in prison. Every guard is the man. And if you got it, yes, sir, boss man. Yes, sir, boss man. And some people say, well, I ain't gonna do that. I played the game. And I came out smelling like a rose, where other people was like, well, somebody must have bucked you for you to get. No, I didn't have to bend over for anybody, and didn't and wouldn't, because I did it in another way with self-respect and with honor to the other person. Did some of those guards deserve me saying, yes, sir, boss man? No. But the other people that I showed my respect to them as my guard, as their superior or whatever, they realized, wait, this guy, he's different. And for a year, I practiced this. For a year, I started out in solitary and ended up being the grand poobah of all prisoners. I was in charge of the kitchen, of all the food preparation, not the cooking, but the preparation. I'm chopping lettuce, blah, blah, blah. I was in charge of the stock room, and I was the head waiter and where the guards and the sheriff's deputies and everybody hung out in the cafeteria for the guards. And I never had to do anything like physically bend over, sucking, the deal. Nope, didn't have to do it. But I got there anyway through other means. The power of intent. I'm going to get that job. I'm not going to kill anybody over it. I'm just going to prove myself worthy and trustful. Even though I was making hooch, they never found it. I turned in some hooch that really wasn't hooch, but make it feel good. Oh, look, I found it. Somebody got in my storeroom and tried to, and left me alone. We could play cards till 11 o'clock at night and didn't have to go back to our cells. We had our own little private TV. It was black and white, but we could choose the channels we wanted to. I mean, we got certain things, and people was like, well, you must have sucked off a guard or something, or you must have done something. It was all about respect and honor to myself and to the guards. Now, there were times where I was like, nah, but I always said, boss man, now you got this wrong. Boss man, we didn't do this. Boss man, always showed respect to the authority. And a lot of people say, well, I told it. Yeah, then you stuck your ass for 2 years in a cell with 12 other guys, getting your butt kicked every other week and doing all this other. And you say I'm wrong in what I did? I came out of jail with money that I earned, I came out with respect from all of the guards that I served while I was in the cafeteria. I had people giving me money when I got out. Well, here's $5, Dave. I know you're going to need it to get back to Georgia. I mean, unbelievable, because I treated people with respect. Is it possible? In my world, it is. And that's a journey of 10,000 steps. I brought it back around. So anyway, let's end this after 2:18 and say, I continue to pray. Even when you guys don't hear from me, Quartz, Marie, all of y'all, I've got my little prayer wheel going. And I'm saying prayers and hoping you guys are okay because I haven't spoke to you in a while or haven't seen you in the chat room. So I want to make sure that you guys are fine. Now I know you all have sent me prayers. I just know it because I can tell. But to the point, thank you for your prayers. Even though I haven't really necessarily asked per se, I did last week about my my daughter's mother, Teresa, and she's out of the hospital and doing better, and she survived the whole thing. And I did a video on it in that the doctors were astounded. They said it went so well, and all y'all were with me during the middle of the night, a few hours before the surgery. And my daughter kept saying, Pops, that the nurses and everybody kept saying it was astounding. It went so well. Everything went, what somebody's live. UOTF is live. I don't know what that is. But anyway, but to the point though, so y'all's prayers and my daughter sent out prayers at the same time on Facebook that I didn't know until the following day. I mean, there was so much synchronicity in that late night, early morning thing. And there was so much other information, and the fact that we all prayed for the doctors, and the doctors and nurses were like, it was amazing. It was so easy, and we were all astounded at how well it went. They were worried that they were going to have to put her on her ventilator because she's had trouble breathing, and they didn't have to. She went through, her lungs were fine, and for the duration of the, I don't know, couple hour surgery, it was even shorter than expected. I mean, the whole thing, dude, was just amazing. And because of you guys and everybody else too. But the thing is what we prayed for was not for her. We prayed for the doctors and the nurses, and they were all astounded. I'm just, miracles. Yeah, you betcha. And hey, we can do this. They're not winning because I refuse to give up. Even if at gunpoint and they put a bullet right through my brain, I'm going to be smiling and laughing at them the whole way. You may kill me, but you have not won because I still have my brain. I still know what I know. And whether you shoot me or not, or try to starve me to death, does not matter because I got what I got up here. And I got what I got in here in my heart. And you can't take that from me. You may take my quote life, but are you going to take the rest of me? Can't have me. I ain't for sale and I'm not for swindling, and nope, I'm not giving in. Melanie, how you drew me in again tonight. Thank you. My mother-in-law passed. Oh, I'm so sorry. Unbiased and on the fence. Gotcha, Quartz. I was like, what? But Melanie, let's all send a prayer out to Miss Melanie, please, for when losing anybody, even if you hate them, you still, there's a loss there. But yep, Quartz, I'm kind of like that. Well, I'm already in the astral, so why not go ahead and kill me? There were some people, in the Jewish faith and so forth, but not only that, some of the Native Americans even. When you understand, it's like, well, Creator put me here and you can take me out, but I'm still going to Creator. I know where my spirit's going. Why were some of those braves? I mean, these guys, the soldiers that got repeating rifles, and the Indians are running around with little rawhide shields and bows and arrows. Now, bow and arrow hurt the crap out of an arrow hurt the crap out of you, but that's not the point. The point of the matter is they were outmanned, outgunned, and they still said sorry. Now, Crazy Horse along the way, he noticed, and Sitting Bull and several others were like, we ain't going to win this, and they're not going to leave us alone. We've got to give up for our own survival. And there was like, the Apache and some of the others. There were some renegades. Sure enough, renegade all renegades from all the tribes who are like, no, we're going to go down fighting because we are warriors. And even some of those had to say, wait a minute, but should I give up my bow and arrow for a book with the understanding that I know who I am and you can't take the Indian out of me? I'm still going to love Great Spirit. No matter what you do to me, I'm still going to understand what I understand. Now, does that mean I could say, go ahead and shoot me, Motorola? Yeah, I don't care. Well, in my choice, when I was in jail for that year, facing 20, by the way, um, that I realized it was better to go ahead and play their game. Now, again, I didn't have to do anything sexual or untoward to get what I got. I just played their game. I saw it, realized it, and played it to the hilt. Yes, boss man. No, sir, boss man. Yes, sir, boss man. And the thing is that by playing the game, I got more than I bargained for because they saw me not necessarily playing. I say playing it. There was the tough guys. Well, you couldn't catch me being a trustee mopping the floors. And it's like, it gave me something to do. I'm not sitting in a jail cell for the next 20 years. Get me out of this thing. I don't care if I got to mop floors. At least I'll be doing something, and I can sing and mop the floors and, blah, 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 play little games, talk to people in the cells, but to just be locked up. But then there are all those guys. I wouldn't do that shit for nothing. You could, you're gonna do it for the man. He ain't getting no. Then okay, then be stupid, And these guys are like, man, how'd you get out of jail with $150 in your pocket? Tips from the guards. Well, who'd you have to suck off? Nobody. You mean you didn't have to? Nope. You come out of jail with $150? Yep. And that was after paying for my laundry and paying for this. And I was crappy at poker. So, but I wasn't a bet man in that respect. But so I came out of there because I worked and I was polite to people and I got good tips. I made it straight on the up and up. How many people go into jail for a year and come out with $150? With new socks. I had new underwear. I'd been able to make the money in the dining room by saving my tips and buying clean underwear, buying clean t-shirts. So I came out with not necessarily wardrobe, but $150. And I didn't have to, to do anything untoward, except where some people would say, well, but you had to give up your pride. No, I didn't. I played the game with the man. I kept my pride within myself. They never took my pride. Why? Because I didn't care if I was sweeping the floor. I was going to sweep the floor with pride. I was going to clean the kitchen with pride. I was going to cut the meat with pride. I was going to do this with my own self-pride. They saw it, they recognized it, and I was rewarded for it. And it's proof to the pudding, in my opinion, that regardless of the crappy situations, if you keep your self-worth, they never broke me. And if anything, I broke a couple of guards because they were idiots and they set themselves up. But I've told that story before, maybe for another story again, but not now. But to the point though, if you give up, if you give in, now I told the man, yeah, boss man, and as soon as he walked out of there, I was making hooch, but I was convincing. Now, one could say, well, but you lied to the man. Yeah, I lied to him, but he knew we were making it because he took us up to our, he had to take us up 2 floors. We were drunkard and skunks. We had spilled it on each other. If you couldn't tell that we had just come out of, a batch of homemade hooch, sorry, but did they bust any of us? No, because we worked our ass off 7 days a week. And those of us who got drunk were the ones who are respectful to the guards. I mean, this one guy, he was one of the cooks, scrawny little guy. He's scrawnier than me. And he's literally, I didn't know this, but he's got his uniform over his arm like this. And he took a uh, a cream pitcher, milk pitcher kind of thing, up the elevator with the guards, and this thing's squashing all over the place. And we're in this elevator with homemade hooch, and you could smell it. And I was like, "Oh God, Dana, they are so gonna bust us to population." And the next morning, they woke us up, and the one guard was like, "Heard you had a good time last night, Hawkeye." And I was like, "What? Come on, you and Dana get up." And we're like, "Ugh." We smelled like hooch, anyway. So, but they knew we were doing it, but we did it with such respect and honor that they didn't care that we got drunk one night. I mean, we got piss poor drunk, but they let us by. They let us slide. Nobody wrote us up. Nobody got mad at us, and they should have. But it was because we treated them with the authority that they thought they deserved, and but at the same time, they understood that we weren't harming anybody. We'd been working our butts off for months without a day off. And so we made a little bit of homemade hooch and got a little tipsy. They let it slide. Now, not everybody could have done that. And not everybody did. But to the point, though, with the right amount of acceptance and respect and the things and honor and pride. I mean, they saw the pride I took in my work. All the other guys were like, that's clean enough. And I was like, no, there's still dirt in the corner, guys. Come on. You know, I started out cleaning the kitchen floors, and then they moved me into this, and then I moved up to this one, and then they moved into that one, all because I took pride in my work. So for those who say, well, you gave up your pride. No, I didn't. I used my self pride, my own self worth, and said, this journey of 10,000 steps, I'm in here for a year. Why not make the best of it? Why should I piss off all the guards? Why should they throw me in the hole? Why should I bow up at every time and this and that? So sticks and stones. So they call me an asshole. Oh, you're just an asshole. Right? Okay, fine. I know who I am, and you're a dick guard. So we're even. But did they get to me? Nah, because I kept my sanity. I kept my own self-worth. So with this cabal crap, I look at it as like, it's a bigger jail, but it's still a jail. But I can still like, sure, go ahead. Yeah, all right. Yeah. Bitch, 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 bitch. That's just going to get you banned from YouTube. And if you're going to bitch, 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 yeah, they're going to throw you off of this thing. Okay, so I'm going to talk about it, but we're going to look at it and see what kind of positive respect aspect we can get out of this. I spent a year in jail. Yeah. But there were guards that wrote to me 2 years after I was out of prison, asking me how I was doing. Did I make it back? Did I make my probation? I mean, and these were guys we got to be friends. They're the jailer, and I'm the convict. And okay, I'm felonious this, but I'm a felonious monk. Never mind. That's a jazz musician anyway. I'm a felonious monk, a monk of never mind. But so, are we going to win this? We already have, in my opinion, because we've decided not to go along with the program. We play the game when we need to. We take our fiat dollars to the place and buy a hamburger or whatever, and I don't buy ground meat anymore. I buy sliced beef. Sorry, but Arby's is now high on my list of places I like to go. But because I want to see, if I'm gonna if I want hamburger, I'm gonna make my own. I'm gonna get me a big old chunk of beef, and I'm gonna slice it, dice it, and run it through a grinder myself. But to the point, though, um, you know, I made the choice. There are millions of chickens around where I live, and they are not for they're for slaughter. I've talked about this. After seeing how these chickens are raised, after seeing the weird, if you saw these chickens, you would never eat another. I haven't had chicken literally in years, and I love sesame chicken. And I will still close my eyes and when sesame chicken is around. But to the point, though, when I noticed that what the chickens looked like, these hybrid chickens that they look like a cross between a duck and a. They're strange. I've talked about them before, but to the point though, no, 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 no. I said, ain't eating another chicken from a chicken place. As much as I like fried chicken, sorry, but it ain't going in my mouth anymore. Not from what I know. And I mean, I would literally rather barbecue one of the cats in my yard as to eat these chickens that if you saw them, you wouldn't eat it anymore either. But anyway, so, but with that, so I've made my own conscious mind, and I know how much they pump these chickens with, um, antibiotics and all these other kinds of stuff. So it's like, so my choice is, which would I rather have? A little bird that's chocked full of crap, or a big brutish animal like a cow that sure they get shots and stuff, but it's gonna be dispersed. They give the same amount of stuff to a chicken that they would give a big ass bull. Puh, just saying. But with that said, though, the choices that I have made, sure, I'm not totally a vegetarian, and my father was a meat cutter, my grandpa was a butcher, so I come from a long line. But to the point, though, I understand. I'm not going to eat these chickens around here, and you wouldn't either. But so make other choices. As I've made other choices, my arthritis has gotten better, different things have happened, blah, 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 blah. And it's because of the choices I made. I choose not to drink Mountain Dew anymore because of all the baby crap in it and Fetus and stuff and Pepsi and some of these other drinks. I refuse to use these other things because I've done my homework. And my spirit tells me, no, Hawkeye, if you're serious about this, you got to walk the walk and talk the talk for yourself, not for anybody else, but for myself. If I'm going to bitch at people for plastic, then I can't be buying up a bunch of plastic bottles. And when I do, I want to make sure that things get recycled. So, what I think of what I want to change, I've made this effort. So I know all of you have made the effort, is where I'm going with this, to not accept these crazies. We are winning one way or the other. We're winning. Can't take us back. None of us can go backwards. They may throw us in a FEMA camp. They may point guns at us, and I might go, yes, sir, yes, sir, boss man, yes, sir, boss man. I might nod my head up and down, but what's in here is mine to keep, mine, and that's how it goes. McDonald's more than McDeath. Absolutely. My kids call KFC the what? Fattening center. Absolutely. KFC isn't allowed to be called Kentucky Fried Chicken because it's not really Kentucky Fried. It's very disturbing what is really in that fast food. Oh man. Um, One of the things too, because they realize that mass production in closed in area causes diseases. Yeah, that's part of it, Marie. Um, a lot of it. I mean, chickens are kind of crappy anyway, and that they'll crap on. They're one of the few birds that will eat out of their crap. I mean, if they've crapped on the ground and you throw something out, they're going to eat it up. But they make it. So basically, they're not necessarily eating their own poop, but they're eating off of their own poop. And you'd think, well, wait a minute, shouldn't the chicken die? No, it's one of the few animals that don't get sick doing it. So it's like, naturally, chickens are good in that respect. But when you put thousands of them in a confined area where they literally, Mary, listen, a friend of mine brought me some chickens a couple of years back. They were so lazy when I put them out in this other, in a different pen, just to keep them separated from my other hens and the roosters, they wouldn't get up to eat or drink. I put food literally this far away from one of them, and the chicken died in that spot. It refused to get up and walk a foot over to where the feed was. And I was like, what? And I'm not, because they all sat in front of a trough. Sat. So none of them had to move. of the 6 or 7 chickens that they gave me, only 2 of them could walk. Could walk. I mean, pick them up like wouldn't walk. They could walk. They had the strength. They didn't know how. And because they were cooped up in a pen, they just sat there and ate all the time. And they don't go in there and like clean out the chicken poop every week or so. No, these chickens stay on that poop, crap, shit, etc. until the chickens are taken out of the pen. So for 6 months, they're living in this much crap. Every single day, all the whatever antibiotics, whatever things they're getting, they're standing on it, they're sitting on it, they're literally they don't. It's unbelievable. If people really saw it, they'd go, "No, I'm not eating another chicken finger." Now here's something else. Not a friend of mine worked in the food. I've had several people work in food processing, but I was like, well, how do they get this chicken to look like a nugget? And do they grow the nuggets like that? Here's one for you. You won't ever eat another chicken nugget. They take the meat and they shred it at cartilage, a little bit of bone, literally strip it off. They boil it and then they put it in this high process thing and turn it into this weird looking kind of almost like a slime. And they break it down, run it through different sizes of mesh screens, and then pack it back together. Literally with a press. They come down and go patoom, 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 and they make these things. Ever wonder why they all look the same? Because they're basically cookie cutter, but they're not made from a piece of chicken. They're made from shredded chicken that's put back into a form that they can stamp out with a cookie cutter. And then that scrap goes back in and gets recycled, get run through the process some more, and gets in. So there's no waste of the chicken meat. What? So anything can go through these things. I mean, cigarette butts, it just goes through this thing, gets shredded and mushed, and then put back in to make it look like a chicken nugget again. Ever thought of why they all look the same? Oh my God. When I saw that, my friend was like, why do you think I don't eat chicken nuggets? And I was like, hey, have some. No, you're getting chicken nuggets again? Yeah. Well, he used to tell me, and this has been 15 years ago. He goes, Dave, if you saw how they made them nuggets, you wouldn't want to eat them again. And then I went to one of the factories because he was working in that area and I was the engineer. But anyway, we went to one of these manufacturing plants and I saw the process and I was like, you're right. I'm not eating another chicken nugget. It ain't really chicken. It is, but it ain't, but it is, but it ain't. I mean, to shred it and then put it back together again, how they get that? Oh my goodness. Anyway. All right, dear friends. Mass production. It has its downfalls. Anyway, that's why all the fish are dead in the rivers around here is because of all the chicken poop that gets put on the fields that they don't till in runs into all the streams around here. For 2 years, the EPA did a study on my river in my backyard that they were literally taking samples every 2 or 3 weeks, and they chartered them. And I mean, it was a EPA. Why? Because the chicken poop was getting into the streams, depleting. It creates a certain bacteria that depletes the stream from oxygen. So it wasn't that the chemicals themselves were killing the fish. It was the fact that the chemicals were depleting the oxygen in the streams, and therefore nothing would live. And that's why South Georgia is one of the biggest septic tanks on the planet. Just saying. I love you all. Thank you, Marie. It's good to see you. Quartz and everybody else that popped on. Melanie, right? I think. Yep, Melanie. Melanie, blessings to you and sadness for your mother-in-law passing. And we send prayers to you, your family, and friends. And so as I wrap this this little episode up here after all these hours. Um, I, I hope I didn't repeat myself too much. But I think, and love to you as well, Melanie. Thank you. Thank you. But I hope that each and every one of you understands what I mean about the steps on the journey. And that seriously, I mean, if you walk across the yard, and I did this as a test, for every step I took, what could I find different? And there was always a different piece of grass. There was always something with every step I took across my yard, my field up here. I realized there was something different in every step that I took. I just had to realize it and understand it and take it in. Now, I walk across the field and I don't always do that. But the thing is that if you take a step and you look down and go, oh my God, there's a whole new world right there. Take two more steps and there's a whole new other world. There's a whole little ecosystem with a spider and a little worm and a thing and a thing and a this and a that. And oh my, you take two more steps and it's like, oh my God, there's another little ecosystem right underneath my feet. And it's like, so with that said, I continue to pray that every single one of you will continue to accept and receive the blessings, the healing, and the wisdom from the universe, from the Creator. I continue to pray that every single one of you will continue to receive, that you, your friends, your family, and all of your relatives and relations will accept and receive the healings from the universe. I continue to pray that every single one of you will continue to spread these messages, the love, the joy, and the wisdom of the universe, and that every one of you will continue to receive these blessings and upgrades. Strange things on this planet. Stay out of the chaos, but keep an eye on it. I love you all. I do. I do. You know I do. Thank you. Thank you, Marie. I had to duck because I've got orb weavers making large webs around my house. Got to get the threads through my hair. I understand. So, blessings, Marie, to all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and continued blessings. I know we still got a bunch of crap to go through, but it's up here. Keep what's in your heart, keep what's in your thoughts, and until next time, I am your very humble servant, Hawkeye Two Feathers. And until next time, be sweet, be kind, be compassionate, and TTFN.